My name is Lisette Sutherland, and just to get one thing out of the way, because I get asked this like every day, and I'm not related to Jeff Sutherland. It's a total coincidence. It's funny because when I lived in Hollywood, everybody asked if I was related to Kiefer or Donald, and I was like, no, I would not be working in this restaurant if I were related to Kiefer or Donald, probably. So all just complete coincidences for everywhere. So there's a big debate in Agile on whether or not we can be distributed Agile teams. So that's what I want to address today. I want to talk about how to be a high-performing distributed Agile team and how we can work online as if we were in the office together. So I know that many of you are Agile practitioners, of course, that's why we're here, and many of you have to work with distributed teams. And I would like to know how many people in the room work with distributed teams. Yes. How many, okay, you can be honest, I'll be okay. How many people like working with distributed teams? Yeah. I'm okay with it, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. So but today I'm hoping to convince you that it could be a lot better than it is, and then how we can do that. So I know that in the Agile Manifesto, it says right there, it says it has to be face-to-face in order to be an Agile team. But I'm questioning, well, can we be e-face to e-face? Does that also work? So we're going to explore that a little. And the Agile Manifesto was written in 2001. And a lot has happened since 2001. But let's go back. In 2001, Apple released the iPod, yeah, it's hard to even remember. Remember those things? Like, we've come a long way, baby. And Windows released XP. Some people are still running XP, as we recently found out. Not good. And Wikipedia started. So really, we've come a long way since 2001. A lot has happened since 2001. And I know this probably predates 2001, but the hologram thing will play into what we're going to talk about soon. This is my reminder to take a breath. I get super excited, and I'm like, brrr, so, okay, I've taken a breath. You can all use these. So, for the last 3 years, I've been interviewing distributed teams to find out their best practices, their tips, their tricks, what are they doing to make things work. And I'm doing it in releasing my book just recently. The editor has the book now. Everybody's been asking for years, oh, is the book out? Is the book out? But the editor has it, so it's coming out just in a few months. And about a year ago, I printed chapter 1 of the book just to do, a lean test to see what the colors would look like. As you can see, it's like really colorful and crazy and all of that. So I wanted to do a lean test. So today, if there's something that inspires you today during the talk, I'd love for you to tweet it out. I have 5 copies of chapter 1, and so I'll give one of the copies out to people who tweet something. You can be bad too if you don't like something. It's also fine. So it's a big argument. I can take it. So it's also, all of these interviews are also available in podcast form. So if you're a podcast listener, then you can definitely listen to it on the podcast. Okay, so there's 3 components to being a high-performing distributed Agile team, a distributed team at all, Agile or not. And that is, we want to make communicating easy, we want to agree on how to work together, and we want to work out loud. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And a lot of people think that they want to be co-located, but I think what people really, really want is to have high bandwidth communication. So that's actually what we want. We don't necessarily need to be co-located. We want to talk to each other. So how do we make communicating easy? And this is going to sound really simple, but the first thing for making communicating easy is you have to have great internet or you're doomed, right? If your internet connection is bad, you're doomed. And we'll just start out from there. So if you're working with a company with bad internet connection, you're doomed because you're not going to be able to talk to each other. Yes, you can send emails and you can send files, but that is so 2001. And we don't want to do that anymore. So you really need to have great internet connection. And I want to ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to rate your internet connection where you work most often. I know many of us work in several places. 10 means you have awesome internet, like your kids are playing World of Warcraft and people are downloading Netflix and you're listening to Spotify and there's like no interruption. So that's a 10. And so think of what your internet connection is like on a scale of 1 to 10.
At the workplace?
Wherever you work most.
Oh, okay.
So if you work from home or if you work from a cafe, where's the internet connection? Okay, so how many people have a number that they rated 7 or below? Yeah, so that's a sign. So there's something in there. I asked this question in Sweden, not knowing that Sweden has the best internet in the world. Like nobody raised their hand. I was like, oh, come on. So it's really, really important. It can't be understated. The internet connection is your key to the virtual world. So if your internet connection is not good, whatever it takes to get it to be good, paying extra, bribing people, whatever it takes, you've got to get the internet connection to be good. The other is minimizing the background noise. I know it all sounds really simple, but how many of us have called in from the car or from the cafe or had the barking dog, or I had a colleague who had a chirping bird, and it's really cute at first, and then it's not really cute.
We've got a colleague who's working with his grandparents, and it's a wall of cuckoo clocks.
Oh my God. Every 15 minutes.
It's very fun the first time, but no.
Right, but you're trying to get work done at some point.
I have another colleague who has newborn babies, and he needs to take care a lot.
Yeah.
You have the crying, and you have the, oh, please guys, stop, I need to take care of the baby every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it kills your call. All of a sudden the call is painful. And these are the kind of things we need to get rid of. I mean, one thing, you can always mute yourself when not speaking. That's one way of doing it, but that kind of kills the conversation. But that is one of the rules, and you can put that in your team agreement, of course. But just making sure, if you're going to have a meeting, it's because you want to talk to each other. So we need to do whatever we can to minimize the background noise and make for high bandwidth communication. The other thing is using video. And I'm going to ask in a second how many people use video, but video is so important, which is another reason why you need to have rockin' internet, because you need to be able to see each other. When we can't see each other, we immediately become disengaged. It's just one of the most important things. As humans, we're made to connect with each other visually. So when we can't see each other, there's lots of misunderstanding.
Looks quite disengaged.
Yeah, and we can see it, right? We can call them out like, hey, yo, Karam, what's going on over there? But it's nice because if your colleagues are tired, they're rubbing their eyes, if you can see that, and that's what we really need.
What software do you use to work with that many people?
Zoom, best video conferencing software out there by far at the moment. Zoom.us. Tell them I sent you, because we have a love relationship over there. I think I sell more Zoom than their salespeople do. No, really, it is the best. I mean, if you have Skype for Business, just chuck it in the river. Or if you have anything by Cisco, just chuck it in the river. I'm serious. I mean, it's so bad. Zoom compared to Skype, there's no competition. Yeah.
GoToMeeting is...
So 2001. Yeah. I mean, when somebody joins the call, ding. I mean...
Have you used the peer.in?
Yeah, appear.in is okay. It's improved a lot over the few years. If you go to my website, collaborationsuperpowers.com/remote, I have a whole list of great video conferencing tools that you can try there. And Zoom is, I think it's like $10 or $15 a month for the person that has to send out the link. It's not per person, it's just the person running the meeting. So,
Collaboration Superpowers.
Yeah, that's the name of my company, collaborationsuperpowers.com. Yeah, I should have put that on there, but instead I have a hashtag for Twitter so you can see where my brain is. But yeah, Zoom.us is absolutely fabulous. You can have up to 50 people on the call at the same time, 50 people. You don't really want to have calls like that, but...
Can you share screen?
Oh yeah, you can share screen, you can annotate on the screen, you can record.
Different rooms.
Yeah, you can break out into smaller rooms and then come back into a bigger room.
We use Hangouts, but it just...
Boo. Hangouts uses an enormous amount of bandwidth, so does Skype. So, and it also, it plays to the person who has the least amount of bandwidth. So if you've got one person on the call, it takes everybody down, whereas Zoom doesn't do that. So yeah, so I love Zoom. I hope everybody else loves Zoom. If there's one thing you get from this talk today is like, get Zoom. Really. Yeah, you can get it on a mobile. It works awesome on the mobile. I mean, yeah, awesome. Okay. So let's talk about video. How many people here use video now with their teams? Okay, so that's a pretty significant amount. The people who don't, the three of you in here who don't, how many don't use video because you feel too shy? That's the wrong one to start with, I know.
I usually do, but I rarely talk because I feel shy.
Right? So there's great things we can do for that. For meetings like that, if you want to solve problems like that, which is start with an icebreaker question, because science shows that if everybody has spoken once in the meeting, they're more likely to speak again. So just go around the room and say, favorite vacation spot? Ding, ding. It's supposed to be a really quick question. Just a small thing like that can really work. And you're not that shy because you've spoken out in front of this whole group, right? It's good. There's other people who just don't like video. Are there people just don't like? You can admit it. I'll be nice to you. There's you're in your casual clothes.
It makes you look weird sometimes, like depending where you have the webcams.
culture.
It's true, it's true. Or it's like looking up your nose or, yeah. Definitely it's good to have a setup. Oh, the camera guy's here. Okay, so are you people who are in their casual clothes? Like that's another reason people say they don't want to use video. And I say, come on, we're professionals. Like we're trying to do work and put on your shirt and stay in your pajama bottoms. That's totally fine. But you know, put on your professional shirt and let's get the job done. Distracting things in the background is another reason. That's an important one actually. People walking back and forth, children, stuff. That's another one. That's a solvable problem. In my room, my desk is right. I live in a very small apartment that I turned out loving, but my bed is right behind my desk. Also not what you want on a professional call when your clients come on and there's your bed, like hello. And in your pajamas is also not good. So I just got like one of those room dividers that sits behind me. Works great.
But the BBC guy has the bed.
The BBC guy was an awesome example. An awesome example, of course. I got sent that video like 150 times that day from like everybody that knew me sent me that video. But yeah, these things, on the other hand, it is a great way for you to connect with your team when that happens, right? You get a little personal interaction, which is a lot of things that people complain about with virtual teams, is not being have that bond. And when those things happen, I mean, that guy and his family became famous and probably bonded quite well over that. And then the other one is multitasking. People want to multitask without other people knowing what they're doing. And I'm like, we're in a meeting, we're here for a reason, and you shouldn't be multitasking. And I'm as guilty as I'm as guilty as both of you. Okay, so those are the very basics about making communication easy. I could go on and on, of course. But the next thing in terms of how to be high performing is we need to define what normal behavior is on our team. And this also addresses the cultural question, because a lot of people say, well, we're working with lots of different cultures and people have different ways of being. And I think when you create a team agreement with your team, that can really address that problem. With Agile, we have working agreements, and the team agreement just goes slightly deeper than that, which is, do you need to have core hours? How are you going to talk to each other? Is it going to be email, instant message, Slack? Are you going to use the phone? You know, what are your protocols? What is the response time that you're expecting on your team? All of these things. There's this great, if you go on my website, you can see there's, it's called the ICC workflow process made by Phil Montero of the Anywhere office. I would have named it something sexier, but it's the ICC workflow. And it stands for you just defining what information are you going to share, how are you going to communicate with each other, and how will you know what each other are doing? And just as a team, defining that for yourselves so that expectations are met. There's a good example of a woman I worked with, and she used email like an instant message system. So you just get this like 20 emails in a row. And I was like, just use IM, it would be so much easier. I mean, it's easy enough to manage, right? You just delete everything until you get to the email that you need to respond to. But what happens over time is you want to communicate with her less because of it. And on a remote team, that's death. You don't want anything getting in the way of wanting to talk to each other. So this is like a really brief introduction to team agreements, but you understand the concept. One cool part of the team agreement is talking in one time zone. On the Happy Melly team, we've all agreed to talk in Amsterdam time so that everybody else adjusts to Amsterdam time, because time zones just are a pain for everybody, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so the third part, of course, is working out loud. And working out loud is a concept I got from John Stepper, who did not create the concept of working out loud, but he's the one that's really sort of brought it into the world. And working out loud means making your work observable to others in a way that's meaningful to the team. So it's not like spamming everybody with like, oh, now I'm writing this report, and now I'm writing an email, and that'll drive you insane. But working out loud is just, how do you make your work observable to others so that people know what you're doing? Slack is a great way of doing that. Of course, then you get the whole noise, signal to noise thing. That's something to be solved. But that is one way of working out loud. Another way of working out loud, this is another one of my favorite tools. After Zoom, Sakoko is my next favorite tool. This is a virtual office. How many people have seen Sakoko before? Okay, oh, exciting. So welcome to Sakoko. This is great. So Sakoko, this is a virtual office. Each one of these squares represents an individual office. It's back to the cubicle days still, so we're still in early days. I'm sure it'll get fancier. You can only see and hear the people that are in the same office as you, but you can see where everybody else is in the office. So the four of us here on the screen, you can turn on your video and share screen. We're all sharing our cats here. We're down here in the lounge area. nobody else can hear or see what we're talking about, but they can all see that we're here. And so this brings an interesting dynamic because now, you know, a lot of people don't call each other or don't talk to each other on virtual teams because I'm afraid of interrupting. I don't know if they're busy, you know, so we hesitate. Here you can see like, oh, like these two are talking over here in Henry's office, so I know that when they're done with their conversation, I can just knock on the door and actually go in and have a conversation too. So this sort of simulates the office online. And in fact, with one of the groups that I'm in, we've taken this one step further. We've created a virtual co-working group. So every day, a bunch of us from all over the world get together in a virtual office. We've never met in person, some of us, and we just hang out working on our own things. But we can get together in the I'm in the mood to talk room, or in the lunch room, or some of us, we have a standing desk room and we have a martini lounge. So we all just, you know, get together whenever, and it's actually works really well because I love working from home, but I also love working with other people. And I don't like going to co-working spaces because the chairs are uncomfortable and the environment is loud. I'm in video calls all day long. My coffee is way better than in those places. So it sort of gives me the best of both worlds. But if you're working on an Agile team, this is a great way of seeing where everybody is and what people are doing. There's some other creative things that are out there. Some of these photos are bad, but they're like in real life photos, so they're not stock photos. So the Ateo board is from a company in Germany. It stands for Ein Team, Ein Office, so one team, one office. And on this side of their screen, they've got a virtual task sticky note board so they can see where the tasks are. And on this side is the video into the other team's office. So it's really meant for two distributed teams that are working, but like these guys can see and hear each other all day long. So they're working sort of side by side all day long. Another way of doing it, Global Logic in India, they call it their virtual one room. All they did was set up a webcam in each office so that the teams, they can't hear each other, but they can see each other. And the cool thing that happened with this is that they developed their own sign language. So they like have a signal for good morning. They have a signal for I'm going to lunch. You know, they have this weird sign language going through the office, but I mean, it sounded a little Big Brother to me at first, but it actually works surprisingly well for them. It's just a way for the teams to connect. And then, of course, if any of you have listened to the podcast or know me at all, you know I love the robots. I love telepresence. And we're really in early days with this now. But this one on the left, this is the Kuby. This is a portable telepresence tool. And I have one here today, so I wanted to show it. Try going through airport security with this. I was telling people before, the way to do that quickly is just start giving a demo. Like, oh, it's a portable telepresence tool. And they're like, yeah. So basically, it works just like Skype. It's my friend Kristen, who's really fun. It works just like Skype, except for that I can beam in and move myself from wherever I am. And it sounds really simple because I can like sit at the table with somebody else and like move and look at who's talking at the table and sort of so that you're not just facing, you're not a computer. So for the person who's beaming in, it's really cool because I can like turn around and see who's talking. I can also like nod yes and no. So that's exciting. But for the other benefit is that for the people in the room, that are the people that are in person, it actually humanizes the person that's beaming in. So no longer are you sitting in a laptop, but now this becomes kind of personal or like a person because it has movement. And it's surprising how much more personable it gets. So it seems like a gimmick, but works surprisingly well. And what? Well, on the screen. Yeah. It opens up a whole new form of office humor, that's for sure. Because you've got wigs and bow ties and all kinds of things that you can, of course. So if people want to try it out later, I'll have it. You can see what it feels like. It is really, I encourage it because it is an interesting experience. And you don't really grok it until you've actually driven it or moved it around a bit. So we'll leave Kristen here for now until it goes off. So the other one, though, is the Beam Pro, and this is the drivable robot. So you can actually drive it using the arrow keys on your keyboard. So that's Kristen again, she's a totally good sport, and that's me. She's from Canada, and I'm in the Netherlands, and we've beamed into a conference in Las Vegas. And we went to talks, and we went to booths, and we had virtual tea together. And I mean, like, we got so much attention. You can imagine two women driving down the aisle with robots, and people were just like, oh my God. But, and I don't, the Big Bang Theory had this one on their show once. That's where most people have seen it. And also Edward Snowden beamed in from Russia to give a talk at a conference at a TED conference using one of these. So really, really powerful. I mean, the downsides is you can't have stairs or elevators is a problem, pools are a problem, that kind of thing. But it's person height. So you're actually talking to a person when you're beaming in.
You just need to get one attached to a drone.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can see where this is going, actually. Can you what?
I can be taller on that.
Oh, yeah, you can be taller. That's that's brilliant. I've never thought of that. Totally brilliant. So some of the ways that it's in action, this guy was actually working from home because his kids were sick, but he put the Kuby in his office so that people could just come into his office as if he were there. And he was actually, you can be in 2 places at once. Just imagine the possibilities. So that was good. That was cool. This is at the Kuby office. So he's just sitting around the table. But on an Agile team, when you're sitting around the table with each other and you're planning, and you have one remote guy or girl, this is the perfect way of roping them in on the team because they're actually there. It feels like they're there. And then at the Suitable Technologies office, they have actually, they call it half of the people are there in the flesh and half of the people are there in the robot. So their office is actually a 50-50 mix of people and robots. And they all have lunch together, watch videos. You can play video games together in this way, like in the same room, just somebody somewhere else. So you can see that a lot has happened since 2001. And to be very honest, I mean, virtual reality and augmented reality, holograms, I mean, those are already a reality now. And when they become easier to use and when the price goes down, we'll see that changing the world of work 100%. I mean, that's going to just be a game changer. Because already we can meet in virtual worlds. I mean, we've been able to do that for over 20 years. It's just that it's so hard. I mean, navigating, if anybody's been in Second Life, navigating Second Life is like, has anybody tried? Oh my God, it's like learning how to play the piano. It's so hard. What's hilarious is when you first go in, you get spit out. That's what it feels like. You're all of a sudden you feel it, and they call it you're on the newbie beach. And I'm like, a newbie, like a nudie beach, but it's a newbie, like it's a newbie. Anyway, it's the weirdest humor. So, but these things have been around, and it is the future of work. So what I'm trying to say is you can simulate what it's like to work in an office together online using some of these tools. It's just a matter of knowing them and knowing which ones will work for the team and experimenting a little bit. And I just want to mention, if you want to know more and dive deeper and use some of these things, there's the Work Together Anywhere workshop, which you can take online or in person. So that's my plug. Okay, so to be a high-performing distributed Agile team, we want to make communicating easy, so it's no dogs barking in the background or children. We need to agree on how to work together. That's really, really important. And we need to find ways of working out loud and being visible to each other so that we can see each other during the day. A lot of people think like, oh, working from home, it's like a day to myself at home alone, and I can just code all day. And yes, sometimes that's the case, but more often than not, you need to be working as if you were in the office and you just happen to be at home, but you still need to be talking to your team and doing all the normal things. Okay. I get super excited after the tools, so I have to remind myself. Okay. So I want to share with you a couple of the stories that I came across, because a lot of people say like, I still don't know if it's possible. Like, yeah, these tools are cool, but I still don't know if it's possible. And I've interviewed over 100 teams now, and I wanted to say, yes, it is totally possible. These teams have done it. And I know a lot of people have had problems, but at least people will know that these have done it. So I'll highlight a couple. One is with Jeffrey Hesse. He's an Agile coach from Sonatype, and they have a completely distributed team of 30 to 40 programmers. And he wanted to do an experiment with his team, which is he wanted to see if he could travel and if his team would know if he did it or not. So he's a climber, he loves climbing, and he decided to go to Argentina for a month and not tell his team and see if they noticed so that he could go climb in Argentina. And he said it was hard. The internet connection in Argentina is not known for its fastness, you're shaking your head. And it was really difficult, and it was really good that he was tech savvy, but he did manage to do it. So he traveled for a month climbing, and his team didn't know that he was out climbing. So that was like the ultimate test for him. The other interview, this is one of my favorite all-time interviews. Does anybody know Gore? Okay. Oh, great. Well, if there's one interview that you listen to, Gore's is really the most interesting, Because Yegor runs a team of 200 freelancers that have never met, they've never talked to each other, they've never actually spoken over video call, they don't even believe in that. And what they've done is they break down their work into really small pieces, like 30-minute, 1-hour pieces of work. All the freelancers can take on as much or as little work as they want, and when they finish a task, they get paid immediately. If they don't finish a task, they don't get paid. And he doesn't believe in team building. In fact, I think what he says in the video is, I don't believe in this team building crap. He says, I don't care what you did on the weekend. I don't care about your barbecue. Like, did you get the work done or not? So that's what he calls extremely results-oriented working. Is if you get the work done, you get paid, and if you don't, somebody else will pick it up. And I don't know how he does it. I can't imagine that this would work with very many teams, but what I like about it is that it's possible. Somebody's done it. So that we have all parts of the spectrum, and most people like the team building part.
What is the quality of delivered work? Because if you just need to deliver something quickly and get paid.
He brags about the quality. I'm not a coder, I can't review his code, and he's highly controversial. I mean, if you look at his website, and he's got this section for testimonials, and the first one is, you know, you're the biggest asshole I've ever met and the biggest idiot. Like, that's his testimonials. The guy is there to stir the pot. Like, that's what Yegor does. So if you get into conflict with him, you're going to go wrestle with the pigs is what you're getting into. But he stirs the pot, and I think the conversation is a good one to have, because a lot of people are really focused on the team building part, and Yegor is there to say, maybe you shouldn't focus on the team building so much, maybe focus on the results a little bit more. Controversial, but I like that it's possible. So that's why I bring it up.
Maybe
nice guy, though.
People don't appreciate that part of the team building too much, and they like this approach better, so this works better for them.
Right. And I think his team self-selects for the type of person that would work for him too. Because for me, working on the Happy Melly team, the work in particular, like I sign up the Management 3.0 facilitators and I make sure that they're licensed. And I mean, it's okay, but it's not that interesting. What I stay for is the team. The Management 3.0 Happy Melly team is awesome, and that's why I'm there. So for me, I'm entirely the opposite, on the opposite side of the spectrum from Yegor. I don't really care what I'm doing as long as the people that I'm doing it with are great people, for the most part. Yeah. And then the last one story that I want to introduce is this team from they're called R-Loop, and they met on Reddit. And I don't know how many people don't know what Reddit is. So okay, good. So they met on Reddit. They met on a subforum in Reddit. And one guy just said, I want to build a Hyperloop for the SpaceX Hyperloop competition. Is anybody in? And he had a whole bunch of volunteers. And over the course of 1 year, they had 400 volunteers that had never met and worked together to build a Hyperloop. And they came in 6th place out of 1,800 contestants. And are still actually part of the Hyperloop team for the SpaceX competition. So they're actually building their Hyperpod now for Elon Musk to test out. Completely distributed, self-organized, voluntary team of people. So the reason why it's called Stories of Remote Teams Doing Great Things is because this is the kind of thing that inspires me. That we don't need to ask for permission anymore to do great things in the world. Like, we don't have distance anymore to hinder us. And in fact, the whole reason that I got involved with this is that 15 years ago, I was working to help build an online project management tool, which was still pretty cool 15 years ago. And, but the reason why we were building the tool is because the CEO of the company didn't want to die. And he was frustrated that longevity scientists from all over the world weren't sharing data and getting together to solve this problem of aging. So his idea was, I'm going to build this tool to get these people talking to each other because I don't want to die. And I'm hoping that people can solve this problem. So that was, and I was like, okay, crazy, but I'm in. Like, because think of the things we could do if you just get the right people working on the problem together. So it's exciting. Okay, Okay, so I'm going to end with just sort of top 3 tips for working together. And I want to address the issue of time zones, because time zones are like a beast. And the bad news is that the world is not going to, you can't squeeze it together. So there's nothing we can do. I mean, you know, if you're working with somebody in Australia and you're in the US, you're not doomed, but it's going to be very, very hard. So I've got this on my website. You can find this sort of 8 tips for managing time zones. I won't go through all of them, but one of the things, there's a couple that I do want to highlight. And one of them is what I learned from Johanna Rothman when I interviewed her. And she talks about organizing your distributed team well. So really thinking about the organization. And she mentions things like, instead of going from east to west, go from north to south. Because then you have huge distances, but you're in the same time zone. So that's one way to think about it. The other way is to follow the sun. Like really organize your team in a follow the sun way. So you don't necessarily want people in India and people in the US working at the same time. You just don't have enough overlap time. But you know, if you can do it follow the sun, or if you can do it north-south, like really think about how the team is organized. And another tip that I didn't think of, which is recording your meetings. And like, no, really, online meetings are already like the Dante's seventh layer of hell. It's like really mostly a horrible. And the thought of watching a recorded online meeting is like the next level of hell. But actually, it's really handy because on a virtual team, getting everybody in the same room at the same time is really rare. Same video room at the same time is really rare sometimes. And you want people to be involved in the discussion and know how the decision was made. So recording the meeting at least lets people, you know, be a part of the discussion somehow. And what's cool about it is, which I didn't expect, is that when you're the person watching the video meeting, you kind of feel like you're there with the team. And sometimes they leave little Easter eggs for you, like, hey, Lisette, I know you're watching, so if you're watching, can you make sure that you've addressed this, and this kind of thing. So that's one way of doing it. And Happy Mail, we've gotten in the habit of just recording all of our meetings. We just upload it to Google Drive, and it's there for anybody that wants to see. Okay, but time zones, we could go on forever and ever. I have a whole bunch of tips, but we'll move on from there. The next is feedback, which on Agile teams is usually really good. We have regular retrospectives to talk about how things are going. But the other, sometimes the thing that's missing is the peer-to-peer feedback. We sometimes get the top-down, you know, like once a year the manager will come and say like, oh, I want to give you the annual performance review. Like, I've never looked forward to that. And what if your manager and you don't get along? Like that's happened to me on a number of occasions where like we just don't like each other somehow. So this is the merit money system that Jürgen Appelo, I don't know if he developed it, but he's the one who put it out there. And what happens is that every person on our team, the way it works on our team is that every person gets 100 points every month. And the only rule is you're not allowed to keep it for yourself. So you have to give it out to, you don't have to, but you can give it out to whoever you want, as much as you want for any reason. So it can be, hey, for Sergey, because you made me laugh. And oh, I'll give 20 points to Jen because she included me in a blog article that ended up earning me a whole bunch of money. And 30 points because, you know, you stayed late and you really helped me out on that project, whatever it is. I was completely opposed to this system when it first started because I thought, well, how do I know if Sergey's a good coder? I mean, I can't judge him on his coding skills. I have no idea. Or how do I know if somebody's a good marketer? I don't really know. But really what this system does is it's not how are you as what your skill level is, it's how you are to work, how you are as a team member, how you are to work with. And there's also arguments like, well, the most extroverted gets the most points, but actually people recognize that. And it's not as easy to game as you might think. So this is a lovely thing to experiment with in terms of peer-to-peer feedback. And the last thing on virtual teams is scheduling unstructured time together. Just that time for hanging out and like, you know, over the plate of nachos at the bar with a beer. That doesn't happen very often. And so I really encourage virtual teams to like schedule a time once a week just to have lunch. And it doesn't have to be mandatory. It's just that time. If people want to show up, they can show up. You know, every Wednesday at noon, we have this session. Whoever is wanting to have lunch together, we can have lunch together. Speaking of lunch, I will get to the end of this, I promise. On the Happy Melly team, we call it Kitten Talk. And so once a week, we just get together for Kitten Talk. And the only rule is you can't talk about work. So it's just hanging out. And it feels awkward at first because it's like a weird conversation to have online. But you get used to it after a while. And the team appreciates when it's there. Okay, so I will leave you with, if you don't tweet this, please, because it's really just a URL, it's a hidden URL just for people that know it. But at collaborationsuperpowers.com/gift, I've got a PDF for you that you can download that's 36 great tips for online meeting facilitation to help you facilitate meetings. And there is, I've come up with these, I call them Supercards, but they're these virtual cards. So like when somebody starts talking and they're on mute, you can like just say, hey, you're on mute, or you know, you're frozen, or I can't hear you. Can't hear you. There's a whole, you know, since I've had a million, your connection isn't great. Just a way to visually tell people what's going on instead of trying to interrupt the conversation or everybody jumping in at once.
How do I get those ones?
You can, at the website, I've got the 8 most popular Supercards that people use. So the ones that I just mentioned are usually the most popular ones. And then I have a whole deck. I had to make 24 of them in order to get printed. So there's like a whole deck of, you can make your own also. There's all these weird situations. Like with Zoom, you have to, there's the mute button's on the lower left side. So then I've made one that says like mute button is on the lower left side, or the micro, so you know, you can come up with your own. And those you can buy on the website. So there's there. But you can get the 8 most popular ones, just download the PDF and cut them out for yourself. And of course you can make your own with sticky notes. That's also, oh, the best Supercard. This is the great, and you can use this in person or online. I should have thought of this. This is the Elmo card, which means enough, let's move on. Right? Yeah. We've all been in that meeting with the person that just goes on. And this is, and at first it feels rude, but when you have a culture on your team, you get used to it where you're like, I get it, it's time. So that's the card. So I hope that I've convinced you that it can be better than how it is now. It can be better than it was in 2001, and that as a distributed Agile team, e-face to e-face can be just as good as face-to-face with all the benefits of being able to work from anywhere. But everybody has to be committed, and everybody has to be proactive. That's sort of, and you have to have rockin' internet. So those are really the basics. And with that, it's time for lunch or questions or whatever. If you want to just leave, it's fine. If people want to stay for questions, also fine. So, thanks.
So if you have a mixed team with people who are permanently in the office and other people who are permanently working from home or whatever other place, how do you make sure that when a review time is due, managers or the business or anyone else doesn't get biased and treat the people in the office preferentially because they just don't see the others? Yeah,
that's the hardest situation, is like half the team's remote, half the team is in the office. And I encourage people, work out loud. The remote people need to really work out loud and make themselves visible to the team members so that people know what they're doing. And to put your team agreement in place so that your ways of working is really clear for the team. That is a hard situation. That's how many people work on that sort of team now? Yeah, it's a hard situation to be in. The remote people have to work extra hard to do it. And the rule of thumb on a remote team is if one person's remote, the whole team needs to behave as if they're remote so that the people in the office don't get preferential treatment. And when you start to have more and more people who are remote and more people in the office, you get into the situation of the us versus them. Yeah. And that is also a dangerous situation to get in. That's where the merit money, the feedback system comes in really handy, as people recognizing each other for accomplishments and saying thank you. Yeah, it's really, what I recommend is to have a remote office manager, if that's something that the business can afford. And the remote office manager just makes sure that things don't fall through the cracks, that the people who are really shy and maybe not so visible to the team, that they are encouraged a little bit more to be visible to the team, or that the files are organized, or the video, everybody's there for the meeting. So a remote office manager can be really useful. Anything else?
Have you played around with using virtual reality and the sharing of that, so people in 2 headsets and virtual office space?
Yeah, I'm totally into it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm totally into it. I mean, I think virtual reality is super exciting. And of course, the sex industry is the first industry to go and use virtual reality, which is like gambling. Like if you go to a casino, they'll take any money you've got. It doesn't matter if it's been in the laundry 100 times or it's been run over by a car. Like that machine will take your money. And when you get on the bus and try to put in like a crisp $1 bill or something, and the bus does, I'm like, oh, come on. No, virtual reality is the future of work for sure. But the price point has to come down. And right now we're still struggling with video meetings. So I would say, like I'm super into it, but most people won't even be addressing it for the next 5 years. Really? I think. It's getting very exciting. I mean, the Oculus Rift, and I mean, if you go to most people's houses who have kids, the kids already have the Oculus Rift or the virtual goggles already. I mean, video games are huge. Kids growing up now I mean, it's just going to be second nature. Yeah, I think it's going to be huge, but the world's not ready yet until video meetings are better. Yeah, virtual reality is just too far, sadly. Although Pokemon showed us that, like, right, that augmented reality, that was cool. Of course, you walk around town and everybody's like this. So that's okay. Okay, any other? I'll be here all day too, so just as a warning, I'm very enthusiastic about it, so you might. Okay, let's have lunch.